We're being joined right now by White House reporter at the Washington Post, Tyler Pager. And Tyler's got a new series for the paper on how the president's thinking is often informed not by advisors, but by chance interactions with everyday Americans. And Tyler writes in part this: as president of the United States, Biden has access to practically unlimited information. But to a remarkable degree, Biden relies on direct personal interaction for information, catch-up chats with his children and grandchildren, talks with fellow parishioners after Mass, exchanges with workers on his property in Wilmington, Delaware, spontaneous calls to former colleagues, from consumer prices to masking guidelines to loneliness. The president brings their worries to the Oval Office. The chance encounters and informal chats also give the information a random, limited quality, seeming to depend on whom Biden runs into and their concerns of the moment, leaving some aides to marvel at the influence these casual interactions have on setting the governing agenda. So, Tyler, what were you looking for when you set out to embark on this series? And tell us more about what you found.
Yeah, Mika, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with you this morning. And the goal here, I set out a few months ago to try to better understand how the president does his job. He can prioritize any issue. He can meet with whoever he wants. And the process by which he does his job is mostly not available to the American people. We see him give speeches, but most of his day is spent in the Oval Office, in meetings, having conversations with aides and other world leaders. And that is just not something that we can see day to day. So I set out to try to better understand, as he runs for re-election, what does the president actually look like behind the scenes? And so this three-part series tries to answer some of those questions. The first one, which you were just reading from, looked at how he gets information. Obviously, there's the briefing book, there's the daily presidential briefing where he meets with the national security team, and then he has briefings all day with aides. But what I found to a remarkable degree is how much he craves those pulse checks from Americans outside the presidential bubble. He spent most of his career in the Senate, commuting every day from Wilmington to Washington on Amtrak, where he chatted with passengers and conductors and sort of had that ability to get feedback in real time. Obviously, that has changed dramatically as he lives in the White House. He's compared it to living in like a gilded jail. And so now, as he leaves for the weekends, as he does most weekends, he craves those opportunities, even if they're very informal and very casual and infrequent, whether it's going to church on Saturday evenings for Mass, as he often does, or just being at his home in Wilmington and having gardeners or other people come to his property and bring up issues with him. He then comes back on Monday morning to the Oval Office and starts barraging his aides with questions about what are we doing about this? How do we think about this? And it's a remarkable thing that that's how the president really craves getting these real pulse checks from everyday Americans.
So, Tyler, first of all, I love the idea for this piece because I think it really gets into the fundamental understanding that the president has in terms of, how his policies are affecting the average American. As you noted, he used to take the Amtrak every day and had a lot of interactions. But when you're the president of the United States, you oftentimes become a little bit more insulated from interacting with average Americans. One thing that you noted in your piece, which I really loved, is that he asks for letters from his team every week that sort of talk about how the policies that he's implemented, which are quite a few, by the way, are actually impacting those people, how the Inflation Reduction Act is impacting someone directly, how the bipartisan infrastructure bill is having an effect on someone's family or their community. Can you sort of talk about how his team puts together those letters and how those letters really help inform him on his decision-making process?
Yeah, absolutely. And many Americans might be familiar with these letters that presidents get from Barack Obama, who very systematically received 10 letters every night in his briefing book to take into the residence to read. And Barack Obama asked for a representative of letters. It sort of became famous in the White House about which letters Obama was going to read that night. This dates back to the William McKinley administration, where the letters processing was formalized in this Office of Presidential Correspondence. Each president has done it differently. Clinton got them every few weeks. George W. Bush Bush got them a little less frequently. Obama got them systematically. For Biden, it's 5 letters every week. He often sets them aside for weekend reading. And as Adrian, as you said, the letters that Biden particularly gets are ones that talk about the policies and how they have impacted Americans' lives directly. Those are often skewed positively, where he wants to, or aides want him to see directly how the policies he signed into laws, as you mentioned, a slew of legislation, how that has impacted Americans' lives and improved their lives. So not as systematically as Obama did with 10 every night, but still another way that Biden seeks to get out of the presidential bubble and hear what Americans are thinking through those letters.
White House reporter at the Washington Post, Tyler Pager, thank you very much. And